Excellent. Shalom and peace to everybody. I hope you guys are experiencing amazing life and changes that are coming. I know I had some that reached out to me with some really, really amazing questions, and I can't say for maybe everyone who consistently goes with us, but people are beginning to see these facets in places that they've never seen them before, and in many cases, scriptures that they've read their whole life. And it is quite amazing that the message is there, but it has to be unlocked. And so we're going to start the day out after finishing what we were looking at. We're going to start the day out with the secret book of John. It's the first book, I believe, in the second codex, and it's going to be pretty powerful. You're going to see some of the things that was written that John said in the Bible in the New Testament. You're going to get maybe in many ways a little clarification. Maybe you'll see some more of the codedness that actually exists. None of those people would have read the New Testament the way that we read it, and they wouldn't have because of what they didn't, the biases that weren't taught to them, as you see with Saudi and the book that we're reading on Wednesday night. Many of the hang-ups and the thoughts that you have simply did not exist. They would have never struggled with it. They would have never struggled. You find Yeshua a Hebrew man. We go over here and you find Jesus a Greek. It really is absolutely debilitating to the spiritual mind. So let's do this together, and then we're going to get going. If we join our hearts together and we bow in humility, then we will experience wonderful things. Namaste. So, I hope for some of you, the light is beginning to come on a little bit. There's so many pieces and so many facets and so many things that we have to contend with. There's so many thought processes, so many things that we are told are one thing, and then we find out that in reality they really weren't that. And I think that you've probably, if you've been with me this long, you've probably seen a lot of the things that have and will be. I promise you, it will get infinitely deeper. I did not want to go over the tractate on the tripart, simply because I think that it's a book that needs time, and all of us can benefit from the writings of John. John was very mystical. He was very deep human, and so let's pick up on the secret book of John, if you would. So the first subsection that we get here is the teaching of the Savior. And I've already shown you with some of the other documents that we've looked at that the concept, as well as what Saudi said too, Savior was not the picture that you get in Christianity. And so he was indeed, Yeshua was indeed the Savior of the world, and I think really the only thing that we have to add to that is, what does that mean? And so he says, the teaching of the Savior and the revelation of the mysteries. Many of you, if you've been in Christianity any time, you've heard often in the New Testament, Paul talks a lot about the mysteries. And I had a question asked to me about, was Paul talking about himself, and was he having a third eye experience? And the answer is unequivocally yes. And what's even more beautiful, because it gives us a picture of who these people really were and their worldview of things, Paul is so concerned about what his spiritual journey might be, that he downplays the blessedness of the things that were given to him when he speaks of there was a man. I don't say whether it was me or him, and if you read that in context, absolutely he had entered into the mental realm. He had entered into his third eye. But one of the pieces I think that's so beautiful about that is Paul refuses to glorify himself for fear that he may either bring in some form of something that would appear to people that he was setting himself up as being superior. And if you are and have been gifted, and you are and have been functioning in the spirit realm, maybe more so than the people around you, it's very difficult even just to say common words with no bias or intention in your mind, but in other people's minds, intentions get imposed. Understand that just because you have a revelation and you have understanding doesn't mean the people around you do. And oftentimes, I've seen over the course of 30 years, many people that would hear the words, but they never got the context of what was going on. So we have to be very careful about that. The mysteries is going to be through all of this. Why? Because the mass majority, this information was hidden from. And that sounds kind of mean, or it sounds scary, or it sounds like, unfair. And yet you find every one of these spiritual humans, Yeshua starting, you find that they are very hesitant to share truth with people. And there's a reason for that. And so he said, the teaching of the Savior and the revelation of the mysteries and the things hidden in silence, things he taught his disciple John. So if you look at that, it kind of validates everything that I just said. Why did this not start out with, and the things he taught to all of the people everywhere he went? Why it's like this Gospel of John is like a mystery between just Yeshua and John, and even Peter didn't get to hear. Well, there are also secret meetings that Shimon Kepha or Simon Peter had with Yeshua that the others weren't involved in. And there's a reason for that also. In fact, I believe in reality, you must experience that for yourself. And if you understand the metaphor, then it makes it a lot easier to see that. So the revealer appears to John. One day when John, the brother of James, who are the sons of Zebedee, went up to the temple, and it happened that a Pharisee named Aramanios came up to him and said to him, "Where's your teacher whom you followed?" And I said to him, "He has returned to the place he came from." And the Pharisee said to me, "This Nazarene really has deceived you, filled your ears with lies, closed your minds, and turned you from the traditions of your ancestors." And so I really think that this a lot, because some of you may encounter, whether it be your children, whether it be friends, whether it be people you went to church with, and you're going, if what's going on in your life lines up with the truth that is now being revealed, inevitably you're going to encounter it, even if it's a slight amount, more so the deeper that you become opened, the more people are going to be uncomfortable with you. And so if it happened to John, and if you're walking the path that John wrote, that John walked, that John was taught, you pretty much should expect that you're going to encounter the same thing. So he encounters this somebody, we don't know who, but it's at the place of God, at the temple. But the place of God, the temple, was for the Jews. That is to say, it was a physical, worldly place that they thought they could go. And unfortunately, the difference between mystical, metaphysical is that everything that the mass majority of people believe reality, they only see it as a metaphor. Many of you are going to read writings of other people and you're going to think you're tracking true and you understood everything that was, only to find out that they were speaking in many places metaphorically and you missed the whole point. So you have to be, it really is an intense journey of the mind. I said this and was offended someone recently, though slightly. It just caught them off guard. But I said, I believe fully that God intended all humans to be exceptional. They've just chosen to opt out. You'll find in time that that's a truer statement than most can deal with. Because, as always is the case when it comes to source and it comes to teachings, it's always going to end up on you. You can whine, you can cry, you can do whatever you need to do, but inevitably everything that is, everything that will be, and everything that always has been was based on your decisions. And we live in a society where it's all somebody else's fault. And most people, especially the Gen X, have been so programmed that they now take responsibility for none of their actions. Just in case you don't understand this, if there was a devil, it is the mind that teaches to dodge responsibility. The mind of God is that your eyes be opened and you see who you truly are, the good and the bad. But most people don't want that. And so it becomes quite difficult for them to ever breach that. And truly, the people that do that inside of their heart, those people are truly exceptional. And so they asked him, where is your teacher whom you followed? And I said to him, he has returned to the place he came from. And the Pharisee said to me, this Nazarene really has deceived you, filled your ears with lies, closed your minds, and turned you from the tradition of your ancestors. Folks, I've heard that statement in Christianity thousands of times. And inevitably, if there is a right and wrong, and there is, there's just truth and not truth. Right and wrong, I don't know. There's truth, and then there's all that isn't truth. And so, when I, John, heard this, I turned away from the temple and I went to the mountainous and the barren place. And I would hope that you don't miss this metaphoric principle. For many of you, you've been desirous to have people like you. You want what Christianity was. You felt like you had a fellowship. You went to church with the same people and everybody acted the same and everybody talked the same. And so here is one of the greatest lessons that occurs. You're probably not going to be okay with the mass majorities if you find truth, because they're living in delusion. And so John says, they came at me talking what their stuff is, which I know more about than they do. So it's even, I see that for myself. I know just as much about the Bible and religion as most preachers out there. It's okay for me to know. It's okay for me to gain benefit from that. But the question that I then would have to answer is, but is it the truth? Pieces. And so they come at him and they deceive him, and John says, I turned away from the temple. I walked completely away from them. I walked completely away from them. That is also very akin to modern day language you would hear when they talk about changing timelines. If you've had people you've known your whole life and all of a sudden you find the truth, it's not going to be easy for you to stay in their presence, because you're either going to get constantly sucked into their retelling of what you know not to be reality, and that's going to make you begin to not be around that or want to be around that. That's why I always watch how people act to the people that they work with and the people that they live around when they supposedly become enlightened. most continue to not recognize the line and the differentiation there. But he says, hey, they came accosting me about my master was teaching me a bunch of lies, and he said, I just turned around and walked off from them. I ain't listening to that. I don't need you to explain to me what truth is. Because first off, you don't even know. And so some of you may encounter that. Maybe you have children who want you to go back to being Christianity so you can go and worship the sun on Sunday. Those things are difficult to deal with. So to say that they have no implication would be pretty naive of anybody. They do have implication. The question that exists is, what do they have implication about? And so we sometimes don't like that. We like things to say what we might have been taught was everything is good and right when you're going to church all the time. And he says, I was distressed. So if you've encountered this, dear friend, today is a teaching lesson to answer many questions for some of you of things that you maybe don't even know how to deal with. And so we move in. John says, okay, they came at me, they attacked me. Okay, that's a thought, but I responded by the timeline chaining, and I went somewhere else where there were no people, trying to teach Christianity to me. I had to escape that paradigm. And he says, so I went to a mountainous and a barren place. It's so funny to me as you read the scriptures, all of these men function almost identically. When Yeshua wanted private, he goes up into a mountain, and what does he do in the mountain? He prays to the Father. If you understand the metaphor of that, then he goes to the mountain and he meditates. When Paul says that there was one that went into the third astral plane, and I don't say who it is or if it's me, in his humility, but just so you know, Paul spends 3 years in the same mountain that Elijah spent when he was running from Jezebel. And both of them encountered deep meditation, and out of it came a totally different spirit life. Both of them, identical. And he says, I was distressed within. So if you find that, if you find it difficult for coworkers or people you went to church with, maybe you encounter somebody you've known for your whole lifetime since you were a little kid, and they were a strong pillar in the Christian church. If you encounter them and they find out what you believe, I guarantee you're going to encounter this. Maybe some of you with your own parents. And so he went to a mountainous and a barren place, and I was distressed within, and I asked how the Savior was chosen. And this was how he asked. Why was he sent into the world by his Father? Who is his Father, and who sent him? To what kind of eternal realm shall we go? So John got to walk. If you're asking yourself any of these questions, even in part, it's okay, because John got to walk with Yeshua for 3.5 years, and he still ain't got the answers. I think that's marvelous, because that means there's hope for all of us. And to what kind of eternal realm shall we go? And why did he tell us when he spoke that this eternal realm to which we shall go is modeled after the incorruptible realm? As inside, so now you have to ask yourself, is this a metaphor? He's talking about an eternal realm? Well, all Christianity is looking for eternal life. He's not talking about eternal life. He's talking about an eternal world. There's a huge difference in those words. And it is modeled after the incorruptible realm, but he did not teach us what kind of aeon that one is. Yeshua probably talked more than anyone about the aeon. But there's a thing that we have to be careful of, and I don't know when we'll get there, but we will get there, that has to do with the original 12 aeons, I believe it is, which were creations. And so at the moment, I was thinking about this, and look, the heavens opened, and all creation under heaven lit up, and the world shook. Does anybody know what might be going on there? John says, yeah, I went up into a mountain to be barren, and I meditated, and the heavens opened. That would be called your third eye and your crown chakra opening. And that's what John experienced here. They all did. And all creation under heaven lit up, and the world shook. I was afraid, and look, I saw within the light someone standing by me. As I was looking, it seemed to be an elderly person. Again, it changed its appearance to be a youth. Not that there were several figures before me, rather there was a figure with several forms within the light. And now, because you hopefully have a little bit of knowledge about what's going on, you see that it's very easy to see all of this as John is seeing this in his mind. He's in meditation, his third eye opens, and all of a sudden he's seeing all kinds of things he had no idea about. And as I was looking, it seemed to be an elderly person. Okay, well, we know he's not talking about a physical person. So where does he see this person? He sees it in the temple, the place of the mind, the place where God lives, which is the right hemisphere of your brain. And again, it changed its appearance to be a youth. Not that there were several figures before me, rather there was a figure with several forms within the light. So he doesn't say it until that statement, but he also tells you he's in the light, which could be very easily tied to a form of a trance, a very form of a near-death type experience. Brother Cliff has had many of these over the course of his life, where he has encountered things that were supernatural, though he did not have to die to encounter them. And that is a very real phenomenon. Science validates that that is and does happen to certain people. It's an out-of-body experience, but you didn't leave your body. And so, again, it's changed its appearance to be a youth. So these things, that's why if you've studied it all, the things that are going on with mediums, and I know that in part of the New Age movement, this sect is cut off because they don't want to deal with the reality of it. It's not the whole message, friends. God is love and everything is good and we should all be happy and everything's okay and nothing's bad and there's no hell and there's no demons and there's no bad spirits. That is a bunch of BS. There very much is that side of the spirit realm. And again, it changed its appearance. So these things also, you'll hear that a lot when people are dealing with demons in their house, that they will shift shapes. They see one demon, then they see another demon, then they see another demon, and then it will be found out inevitably that that was the same demon that was using that. Oftentimes you see it as little children that bring themselves into the family, and then they reveal the truth of who they are. And so these forms were visible through each other, and the figure had three forms. So once again, the three forms he's seeing actually is a picture that from his mind. The figure said to me, "John, John, why are you doubting?" Anybody recall? Because he's about to explain another New Testament verse. This statement was made by somebody else in the New Testament, friends, but you ain't got a clue about what he meant. "John, John, why are you doubting? Why are you afraid? Aren't you familiar with this figure?" So you then have to look at that and go, okay, well then there was a preconceived idea by the one that's speaking to him that he should have already experienced this and understood this. He says, "I am the Father." So where's the place where you can go to see the Father? Well, if you understand, it's the opening of your third eye and the opening of your heart, which takes you into your mind, which is your higher self. It's all he's telling you everything I've been telling you. And he said, Aren't you familiar with this figure? Then do not be faint-hearted. I am with you always. I am the Father. I am the Mother. I am the child. I am the incorruptible and the defiled one. So there is absolutely zero question of what's going on here, friends. He is meeting, if you would, for the first time, the true essence of the higher self. Now I have come to teach you what is, what was, and what is going to come, that you may understand what is invisible and what is visible, and to teach you about the unshakable generation of the perfect human. So when I say to you that if you are living below that perfection of humanity, it is Source's purpose for you to become a perfect human. I know you love it in your new Christian age that it gets touted more than any other statement. Well, you know, brother, none of us are perfect. You don't have a clue about what the people before Christianity believed about humanity. That's why they lived at such a high standard that they were willing to die for their beliefs. We are very low on the rung, this humanity that exists now. I dare say that if Source did not do something to raise the frequency, humanity is over with. We will kill ourselves out, and there will be no humans in a very short time. Many of these scary numbers that you hear about the world collapsing, if you only live in a literal realm, then you think that means something physical. That's not what it means at all. Humanity is going to die, but it's going to be a spiritual death if something doesn't change. We are very close to that in our society now. And so he wants to show us what's visible and what's invisible. And hold those thoughts in your mind because they're very important. This is akin to saying that what you see and think reality is nothing but an illusion. You see the visible, you have no concept about the invisible. You have no concept about what is going on in your life every day, which is nothing but a metaphor of what's going on inside of yourself. But most people won't deal with that, even if they have been told. And I've been a good steward to tell you that, even if it isn't comfortable. And to teach you about the unshakable generation of the perfect human. That's a strange statement, but friends, all the documents I've read, the perfect human exists in every one of them. It was not if you choose to be. If you accept the responsibility of becoming an awakened human being, it's mandatory that you become something different. Change is not optional. So now, lift up your head that you may hear the things I shall tell you today, and that you may relate them to your spiritual friends. So see, even once again, there is a very, very, very strong indication to us that this not only is not going to be accepted, but it's our responsibility to protect the truth from those around us who are not worthy of the truth. You say, oh, well, we're all worthy. Metaphorically. That you may relate them to your spiritual friends who are from the unshakable generation of the perfect human. And if you ponder that for a bit, it actually gets even more perplexing, and it grows tenfold every time that you revisit that idea in your mind. Especially if you're honest enough to look at yourself and ask yourself, am I approaching the perfect human? And so the one, I asked if I might understand this, and it said to me, the one is a sovereign that has nothing over it. the one, the all, the source. I don't want you to have some misgiving about who is being talked about. It is God and parent, Father of the all, the invisible one that is over the all, that is incorruptible, that is pure light at which no eyes can gaze. The one is the invisible spirit. We should not think of it as a God or like a God. Stop and think for yourself right now and just examine that statement for you. I would ask the question in a counseling session, well, who do you think God is? I know that's a valid question because they ask Yeshua the same thing. So nothing's really changed. So the one is the invisible spirit. We should not think of it as a God. Wow. That's potent revelation, friend. If you've been brought up in Christianity, you were focused on trying to make a human being a God. Really, Christianity is not any different than paganism. In fact, in some ways, it's deeper paganism than any religion there is. Because they've made things that aren't things that are. So, we should not think of it as a God or like a God. So then that esteems to begin our journey to the perfect human that John is going to reveal to us over the next weeks. He starts by saying you gotta change your mind. All that you've ever learned is trash. It's all just an illusion. You've been living in a hologram about who and what God is, and now you got all these pictures waiting to go to heaven, and ain't none of that going to happen. For it is greater than a God. So, our one invisible spirit, the source, the all of all, the I am, is greater than anything you could call God. Because it has nothing over it and no Lord above it. So there is nothing that is more than all. Nothing. It doesn't exist. There's no way possible, even though Yeshua came from him, the Spirit came from him, the Spirit of all of us came from him. And that's what they don't want you to know. One of the pieces, any of thousands. It does not exist with anything inferior. This is going to be a really beautiful piece if you get a hold of it, because you can walk away from here today and you can be totally lost, but there is a piece that if you leave with this piece, I promise you success will come in time. So it does not exist within anything inferior to it. Wow. Do you understand the ramifications of what those words mean? God can't exist in you if you are inferior. Do you understand why these people live their life out with the desire and the search and the need to be the perfect human? You know what we do? We go, oh, well, I'm really bad, but I'm trying. I guarantee you, none of them would have wasted their time to talk to you after that. They're looking for people who are willing to accept the responsibility humans were given 20,000 years ago. And there's not many, and there won't be many. I know they're trying to sell the bill of good that Christianity does. Everybody's perfect and everything is wonderful and everything is happy. And it is true, but it's not. In the context that it's given, it's not. And so, it does not exist within anything inferior to it. That's a hell of a statement, friends. Since everything exists within it. For it is established itself. It is eternal, since it does not need anything. The all does not need anything from you. We have a piece of responsibility to the all, but I promise you, if you don't do what your purpose was, the all can generate 10,000 that will do what you didn't do. So he does need us, but he needs us for our need, not for his need. That's for our need. It is eternal, since it did not need anything, for it is absolutely complete. Source is not missing anything. It has never lacked anything in order to be completed by it. Rather, it is always absolutely complete in light. That's why John tells us in another place in the New Testament, God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. Not only is there not any darkness there now, there has never been darkness there. So if you see the spiritual picture of metaphorically what God is that there is no darkness, and then you hear John say, well, we are to be the perfect human, you now see what's inside versus what's outside. We are to be a picture on this earth of what he is everywhere. That's the perfect human. It has never lacked anything in order to be completed by it. Rather, it is always absolutely complete in light. The one is, and that's a very good name if you choose to use that as a moniker. It's still linear, but it is a very good linear statement that the one, source, I've had people go, oh, so you mean he's just your supply? No, he's my supply, but so much more. And so the one is illimitable. You cannot put a limit on him, since there is nothing before it to limit it. He's unfathomable, since there is nothing before it that can even fathom it. It's immeasurable, since there was nothing before it to measure. And it's invisible, since nothing has ever seen it. So all of the people, I had a guy that I liked a lot, and he was very, very, very religious, very Christian, and he believed that he had a picture and God showed him himself. And he would fight you today over that, and I hate to say it because it's very saddening, but he never saw God. He saw what his mind could concoct as a picture in the spirit realm of what he thought God looked like. I've known lots of people who've done the same, but you didn't see God. You can only see him in your spirit. And so the one is all of these things, and nothing has ever seen it. Eternal, since it exists eternally. Inutterable, since nothing can comprehend it to utter it. Unnameable, since there is nothing before it to give it a name. Those are pretty amazing statements. I look back and with good Christian religious staying power, how important the name was. That's me, folks. I mean, it's lots of people, but I certainly stood in that realm. That's, if nothing else, is an indicator of the revelation that has come. The one is the immeasurable light, pure, holy, immaculate. Y'all know someplace else where that word was used? It was taken from the one that is and given to the one that was. He is immaculate. There was no need for sex, for source to be created, because sex did not exist when he was. It is unutterable, and it is perfect in incorruptibility. And all of these things are pieces outside of the metaphysical, mystical world. You see, all of these pieces are in the New Testament. So what does that tell you? The New Testament is as highly a doctored document as any that have existed, because they keep leaving these pieces in but they change it so that you'll never understand the pieces unless Source has already brought into your life enlightenment. That's why most Christians will never find the truth. So the one, our Source, our Creator, our Father, our God, whatever is comfortable for you to call him. If you need a picture linearly to be able to contact with him or to feel like you're making a connection, whatever face works for you, it works. If he's in a suit, it's wonderful. If he's in a Jerusalem Rome, it's wonderful. If he's in a pair of spandex and has no beard, it's wonderful. He doesn't care, and I certainly don't care. Whatever you make him to be in your mind, that's as close as your mind can ever come to understanding the one. And it will be horribly pale at best. Not that it is just perfection or blessedness or divinity, it is much greater than we can ever imagine. And you see that piece, there's another piece, the Source just keeps bringing scriptures that tie with all of this stuff. We are told very clearly in the New Testament that God's ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. His thoughts and his ways are so high above us, there's no way possible we could ever comprehend. All they're doing is quoting what these people believe, but it's not in the Christian context when you read it here. Not that it is just perfection or blessedness or divinity, it is much greater. And just so you know, friends, the pull of the world is to destroy your divinity. AI will be part of that. These things like Elon Musk did with the Neuralink, inevitably tied with AI, will inevitably be the thing. If you don't believe that, go check out Greg Braden. He's doing a bunch of stuff right now on us losing our divinity. And it's going to come from corporal things that take our minds away from us. All of those easy things that all of these people have been trying to do to benefit your interest. Like, we're much better off because women don't cook food from scratch anymore, and so now we're poisoned. Humanity's better from that. McDonald's is always better than things without chemicals in them. See, what you're seeing, this may surprise some of you, but what you're seeing, the things that Source is putting in place right now, Robert Kennedy is in the place he is because that's where Source needed him for the message that he's giving. If you don't see this, I feel horribly sorry for you. But friends, we are living in the middle of one of the greatest spiritual movements that's ever going to happen. And it ain't going to look a thing like Christianity tells you that the revival is going to be. It's not going to be that. It's going to be very base. It's going to be very right. It's going to be very common sense connected. And all of those things are going on. You can kill yourself if you desire to eat more processed food. If you want sucralose, buy it by the tens of pounds and eat it for dessert. On the other side, if you would like to live longer, you might make a decision to not do that. You see how it is? It's all choice-based. Everything is our choice. We are either killing ourselves or we are doing the things that we can do within our human power from our inside to lengthen, make a better quality of life. I would rather have a better quality of life and die early than I would to have a horrible quality of life and live for a long time. And so you see it popping up everywhere. The move that's going on right now is really phenomenally huge if you get outside of the carnal world and start seeing the spirit world. It's all manifesting, but it's spiritual. And so the one is not corporal and it is not incorporeal. The one is not large and it is not small. It is impossible to say how much it is, what kind is it, for no one can understand it. The one is not among the things that exist, but it is much greater. Nothing that it is, not that it is greater, rather, as it is in itself, it is not a part of the aeons or time. For whatever is part of a realm was once prepared by another. Time was not allotted to it, since it receives nothing from anyone. What would be received would be on loan. The one who is first does not need to receive anything from another. It beholds itself in its light. God doesn't need anything from anybody. He simply looks at himself and he sees himself because he is himself. That's a really strong message that we could learn. What if we started truly seeking, if God can look at himself and see himself, and if the external spirit realm is what is supposed to be the internal realm, as inside, so outside, you also turn that around and say, as so outside is so inside. So we will only come to our highest spiritual self when we begin to do those things I keep talking about, which is when you start finding out who you really are. Not the BS story you keep selling yourself, but who you really are. Because you'll be disappointed. You're going to find lots of things about yourself that you don't like. And you have to find them, and then you have to deal with them before perfection can come. So you are really hindering by continuing the nonsense of the picture that you paint for yourself. Continuing in that paper will keep you in that place. Hamstring held in place, no hope of changing, when all hope of changing exists on every atom. It's crazy. So, the one is not among the things that exist, but it is much greater. You know what's going on here, right? It's the balance beam. It's the two extremes. He's not this, but he's not that. He's all of it. Not that it is greater, rather, as it is in itself, it is not a part of the aeons or time. For whatever is part of a realm was once prepared by another. Time was not allotted to it, since it receives nothing from anyone. What would be received would be on loan. The one who is first does not need to receive anything from another. It beholds itself in its light. And dear one, there's a reason why they use the term of us being awakened or of us being enlightened. When you truly begin to see past, okay, so let me help paint, because somebody needs this. When you begin to care and have such a desire to fulfill who you were created to be, and you begin to look in yourself and you begin to see through the lie that you call who you are, when you begin to do that, you begin to open the door, because what goes with that is as you begin to see the fake that you are, at the same time, you begin to see the light that you are. And what has to happen, which is why you do shadow work, is because you need to go inside of you and find out who you are in your subconscious. I hope that's helping somebody, because it's really what all of the psychologists are talking about. They don't have it in a biblical, they have it in a man's idea, which should tell you that there's limits to it, but there is great wisdom in it. Great wisdom. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, time is allotted since it receives nothing from anyone. The one beholds itself in light. So how then do we reach our highest perfect humanness? The exact same way, friend. When we begin to see ourselves as the light that we are. What we're not light in will begin to go away, because the more that the light is revealed, the more darkness runs. And what you think you are is darkness. What you really are in the spirit realm is light. What a beautiful blessing is being laid out here in front. And I know many people will walk away and go, I ain't got a clue about what that guy's talking about. But I'm telling you right now, I'm giving you the greatest blessing that has been given to humanity, and that's the truth. So the one is majestic and has an immeasurable impurity or an immeasurable purity. See, I am changes a lot. The one is a realm that gives a realm. Life that gives life. A blessed one that gives blessedness. Knowledge that gives knowledge. A good one that gives goodness. Mercy that gives mercy and redemption. Grace that gives grace. And here's something that I would like to show for you who are starting to recognize that there's a yearning inside of you for more than what you've struggled through. Friends, one of the greatest pictures we could have, you could take those statements right there and you could make that your affirmation, and I guarantee you it will change your mind simply by saying those words. Let's look at it like this. The one is a realm that gives a realm. And because the one is a realm that gives the realm, I also am a realm, and I choose to give a realm. Life that gives life. The one gave me life, and because the one gave me life, I choose to give life. See, everything that you are, every bit of your ego, every bit of your bad attitude and your bad intentions, and your self-centeredness, every one of those things can be conquered by you having a desire to imitate what Source is. That's what we must all do. To become the perfect human, it means that we have become enlightened and we can now have the light to see the light, so we now can begin the journey to become the light. It's already in you, but you don't know where it is, you don't know what it is, and you don't understand anything I'm talking about, maybe. Doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just simply means you are not at a place where you can absorb what's being sown. But it is good seed. So think about if you went through your life every day and you said, our Source, our one is the blessed one, and because Source is the blessed one, my journey today is to be the blessed one. You see, every one of those things I stated a while ago, if you want to know how to destroy those things in your life, you destroy them by replacing them with something that is superior to them. So when you have your ego pop up and you need to be somebody to somebody, if you just remember that Source has no ego because there's nobody that's as good as he is. And if you continue to try to make yourself be something, you will not do nothing but destroy yourself. Your ego will destroy you. And inevitably, everything Source put in your life that was good to help you, you will walk away from. Not them, you will. Because of your ego. Well, I need to be somebody. I'm not going to let that person be better than me. I'm not going to let people listen to you. I ain't doing that. See, I got to be the best. And it actually means you're the least. Ego works like that. Not that the one possesses this, rather the one gives immeasurable and incomprehensible light. So if he does that and if he doesn't fail, can I ask you today, why are we not incomprehensible light? If Source has already given us everything in the kingdom, why are we not what's already been given to us? It's a good question. Not that one possesses this. So don't think that all those things I just read to you that are really good affirmations, that if you continue to feed and to seed yourself with those, inevitably, if you take care of tilling your soil, inevitably those seeds will come up, and I guarantee you they will produce a crop. What things do I need to plant? I need to plant goodness because why? Because Source is good. And why do I need to plant goodness? Because Source is good and I want to be like Source. So if I am going to be like Source, then I must give the things Source gives. And you could go down. Blessedness and knowledge. So why am I sitting here today? Because I know that I am his, and I know that he wants me to give the knowledge that he's given me. It ain't about nobody else. Never has been for me. A good one that gives goodness. So source is a good one that gives goodness, and if I'm going to be sources, then I must do what? I must give goodness. So I can go every day, all day long. I am goodness. I do this all the time. I walk around. Somebody make me angry or something, and I'll go, nope, that ain't the way it's supposed to be. I am light. Sorry, see you later, sucker. And I'm out of here. Got no interest anymore to argue with people who have no knowledge. What shall I tell you about this incomprehensible light? Its eternal realm is incorruptible, at peace, dwelling in silence. And the thing that I shared about going up, it's so beautiful how this all works. You want to know how it's mystical and metaphysical? We have somebody who was much more gifted in his life, a prophet called Elijah, who ran from a woman. There's a metaphor there. So he runs from a woman, and even more than that, she's a corrupt woman. We should all run from corrupt women. But at a place in his life, he runs outside away, and he's sitting on a mountain, and all of this is exactly what the Bible tells you. And all of a sudden, he's looking for God to speak to him, and he can't find God. Does it sound familiar? That's what I'm reading to you, friend. And what happened? He said God wasn't in the loud things. God wasn't in the big things. God wasn't in the synchronicities. God was in the things that were silent. That can also be called your intuition. Dwelling in silence, at peace, incorruptible, at rest, before everything. Wow. That would be like the most beautiful ideology of perfection I could imagine. Everything's at rest. Everything's at peace. Everybody is living the fullness. How beautiful. But look at this last statement. Dwelling in silence. Elijah told us that God wasn't in the loud things, that God is in the still small voice. Where? In his mind. You could call him today and the psychic world would say, oh, that Elijah, he was a clairaudience. And you know what? They would be right. He is a clairaudience. And for other people who hear the spirit realm speak to them without having any heard words, although to them it's just as clear as can be, I can promise you they're infinitely more potent than what any human can say to you. And if they're not, then you're walking in a carnal realm. Many are walking in a carnal realm. And so it is the head of all realms. There are no other realms that Source isn't head of, friends. And it is the one who sustains them through its goodness. We would not know what is ineffable. We would not understand what is immeasurable were it not for the one who has come from the Father. This is the one who has told us these things to us alone. Have you begun to understand why Yeshua had to come? Because all of these things about Source were true, but nobody knew it. Nobody understood it. Nobody had a word. He's done this over ages. You're watching it go on again. That's part of the enlightenment that's going on this earth right now. He's doing it again. He's sending people to speak the truth. Yeshua came. He had to come to speak the truth. Yogananda had to come to speak the truth. Buddha had to come to speak the truth. That's why they all have the same message, love. Because in the essence of a single word, there's not one any greater than love. And here we then have Paul, after Yeshua has left his physical house hanging on a tree, if that's how it happened. I tend to believe it was 80 years later in Kashmir, India, with his 700 followers he had. So why then did Yeshua come? John just answered it for us. He came to tell us the things that we know nothing about. Do you think that you would ever have found the truth that you found, or the truth that I'm sharing with you? Do you think if you'd have continued on with your life, you would have ever found it? I don't. In fact, I'm quite convinced that that's the truth. You might have been a good Christian, but that'd have been about it. So we'll pick up there next week. We're going to begin to find out about the Barbello. The Jewish people know about Barbello, or at least the Kabbalistic people and the Jewish sages or rabbis. They know because they study Kabbalah. So I hope that you've gotten some nice pieces, but if nothing else, we've certainly been given some tools that we can take like right today and start using. And when you get to those things and your mind cuts on and starts saying all kinds of words that are detrimental to who you being the perfect human are, maybe you ought to start trying to replace them with the positive affirmations of what Source is. And I know I've said this in the past, and I promise you it's one of the most helps that there is. I am light. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. I don't care who doesn't believe it. It's irrelevant to me. What is relevant, though, is that I know it. And if I know it, it really doesn't matter who else doesn't. So I hope you'll take those pieces. What great love have we seen from him today, that he would tell us the secrets of what is and what isn't. We're going to take a few minute break here and come back. We'll play some music. Hope you guys will ponder this, and then we'll continue to look. Keep your ears open when we read through Patanjali's stuff, because I promise you will see aspects of it that I just shared with you today. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Shalom to you guys. You know, we all are living in the same cosmic place, and we all have the same destination intended for us. And in its perfectness, I think that we'll get there. I think the main question really that we have to resolve is how long is it going to take us? Many times we slow that process down. It's not that Source hasn't been good or kind. He's all of those things, as you saw today. He's all of those things all of the time. I really think if we would dare just to ask ourselves, it's really very few and it's very simple statements. If you could see that those are traits and attributes, of course you're never going to know him. But the point remains that what we can and what we do know about him is enough to change any life if they will apply it inside of themselves. And so, what an amazing day. I think it's wonderful. I find great mirth when I get into a situation and I say, no, I'm not going to react like I used to. I am light. And I've had it help me. I'm not perfected at it, so please, every now and then I have been known to fly off a handle a time or two. But on the other side of it, I also know that he is working in me. And inevitably, if that's you, then it just is part of your journey as to how that works itself out. So, but I think it's safe to say, from a human standpoint, that the name of this song is applicable to all human beings. And the name of the song is Help Me.
help, help, help. All of us need help, and Source is certainly willing to help us if we will accept his help. So the next song is what happens when you get his help. And you can breathe, you can recognize so many things in our everyday life that try to disturb or to take away from our spirit education, if I use that term properly, to keep us in the dark, to keep us isolated from the truth and the light and the beauty of who he is, and so we can see the beauty of who we are. And so when you begin to do that and you begin to learn and accept responsibility for yourself, you don't have to accept the responsibility for others. You don't have to accept the responsibility for religion. You don't have to accept the responsibility for Source. You only have to accept the responsibility for yourself. And when you can begin to do that, and you have begun, the name of the next song is Beat Me Up.
Your mind stops and asks you to walk the way. Tell you if you're interested, you can live on a higher plane. Lead your life to victory. True love is the golden rule. That's the way we live. We can live each day in the life we all enjoy. We are beating the odds. We are beating the odds. We are beating the odds again. No more gambling with our soul. We're playing to win. We're beating the odds again. When you roll the dice, heart's cold as ice. How you can make your body hard. When you find turn time, get up, get up, brand new start. When I'm strapped into the driver's seat, with a spare guy by my side. If you give yourself a chance, lift your pants, bound to be a glorious ride. We're beating the odds, we're beating the odds, we're beating the odds again. No more gambling with our soul, we're playing to win. We're beating the odds again. Time and space just filled that day to stick the soul of mine. We were running a race between darkness and light when we made it to the finish line. And then it was over, we won it in the end. When we get to the prize, heaven opens our eyes, we'll probably try it all again. We were beating the odds, we were beating the odds, we were beating the odds again. No more gambling with our soul, we were playing to win. We were beating the odds again. We were beating the odds, we were beating the odds, we were beating the odds again. No more gambling with our soul, we were playing to win. We were beating the odds again.
All right, we can begin to beat the odds. What an amazing concept. You know, the odds say that many will not find this and will have to come back and will have karma and all of those things that I've shared with. And that's the odds that most people won't get it. But the reality is, his source says, all of those who will get it. And so put yourself in the amazing number, put yourself in the perfect number, and that is the one who just simply sees him and all of his greatness, and because of that, you can eventually find the picture of who you truly are. If we could have that, man, the war and the anger and the frustration and the hatred and the racism, and you know, I didn't realize, I guess, when I was younger, that our nation was so racist, but wow, it has certainly been brought out. Maybe it's due to social media, maybe it's due to a lot of things, but certainly there's no doubt that we have moved into that arena, and I'm quite sure that's not exactly where Source wants us to be. So the name of the next song we're going to do is fits a little more in tune with my heart, and it's called Heavenly Choir. Song coming from heaven, far as angels' glorious sound. Song coming from heaven, far as angels' glorious sound. When we lift our hearts and praise Him, surely turn your life around. No dark clouds control us when we're dancing in our pain. No dark clouds control us when we're dancing in our pain. our pain there. Divine light shines every day. Hallelujah. All right. Well, what a wonderful blessing it is that the joy and the peace and all of the things that our Creator intended, that He lives in, that He really intended for us to live in, and we can live in them if we will leave this world behind. Even while we're here walking and being humans every day, we can still begin to learn how and to train ourselves how to walk in a state of peace and a state of understanding that though everything may not be perfect, Source is perfect. Though everything may not be the way we like it, Source is perfect. And so there just really isn't anything that deters us except for accepting the circumstances that are given to us, or as we perceive them. Oftentimes it goes back to that. Many people are delusional on a lot of levels. But when we begin to realize that we're greater than this, it's so much greater than what we think life is. And so when we get to that point, then we can truly learn the essences of walking in true humility, accepting the bad, as in many ways we should place more value on the bad things than we do on the good things. I know lots of people spend a lot of time on the bad things, and I think all of us have a piece of that we have to unlearn. I'm not talking about spend time rehearsing how bad the bad was. I'm talking about finding the good of Source in the things that aren't wonderful. And when we begin to do that, then we get to win no matter whether it was good or bad, because we're still keeping our eyes and our minds on Him. There's a thing that the Bible tells us, and it says, great peace have they whose minds are stayed on Him. And I know that I've been guilty of this a lot, but even saying those words today, if we really could just catch ourselves in the moment and go, right now, things are not going great for me. Maybe everybody else is doing wonderful, but right now things are not going great for me. And let me see, how would I diagnose that? Oh, I must have took my focusing off of Source, and I must have put it on something else. Great peace have they whose minds are stayed on Him. Well, the next song we're going to sing about here has a little bit of an essence of that everything may not always be great, and maybe I haven't been President of the United States, but you know what? I'd rather walk in the fullness of the calling that is for me than I would to be anything else. I got this song. These days, the good days, are fewer and farther between. Sometimes my hard times, a shadow of my sky blue dream. I don't have much if you look through the eyes of the world. Open me up and you might find just one shining pearl. I got this song, it's a story to tell about good times and bad times, heaven and hell. Well, it might not be pretty, but it has much to say. at the end of all days. One thing they can't take away. I've got this song. I've got a short list of good friends I can count on to call, and a long list of people who don't care what he thinks at all. Show me a man who hasn't yet learned how to fall. There is a man who hasn't learned that much at all. Well, I've got this song. It's a story to tell about good times and bad times, heaven and hell. Well, it might not be pretty, but it has much to say. It's all I've got left at the end of my days. One thing they can't take away. I've got this song. Well, I've got this song. It's a story to tell about good times and bad times, heaven and hell. Well, it might not be pretty, but it has much to say. It's worth all that's left at the end of my days. One thing they can't take away. One thing they can't take away. I've got this song. Yeah, I've got this song. I've got this song. You know, when you come down to the bottom line of what's really important, as humans, what we will have, it's not what we take with us, because there's not much we're going to really take with us. It's what we did while we were here, and that's the song. And you do, each and every one of us, have much to say. Shalom. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
hope you guys have been blessed with this. It was really overwhelming and powerful, you know. I hope that you will take some of those things and maybe bless yourself with some aphorisms, you know, affirming something, which is what we're doing here. Is we're reading some affirmations. You could take the sum of all of these things and you could affirm those things to yourself every day, and it would, whether you know it or not, it would in fact strengthen your mind. You know, I just see such a paradigm in all of this. One version basically requires for us to be mindless and to take this narrative and never doubt it. And if you doubt it, then you're going to a place that is horrible. And wow, it's very successful. It works very good. But what about if we came at a place of having a desire to be what we really are? I wonder how much different in our lives that would make everything. And so we're going to start chapter 3 in the book, How to Know God. You know, if you take this and you look at what John is sharing, John is sharing corroborating evidence about how to know God. If you think that he's someone that's sitting in the heavenlies, you know, David saw him as a king because David was a king. So David said, I saw him and his greatness filled everything and his train filled the temple with the glory. Well, he was a Jewish king. What picture do you think he has? He was brought up, you know, and once he took his kingship, he probably never wanted for anything again after that. So when you begin to see those metaphors, that David painted that picture for his mind. And each one of us are doing the same. Oftentimes, unfortunately, we paint pictures that aren't really all that desirable and think that's reality. But it's inevitably, whether we accept the responsibility or not, your picture is a sole discretion of yours. And if you choose it, if you paint the wrong picture, tear it up and throw it away and get a new picture. And that's another piece that we haven't really focused on very much in our lives. You know, we were taught in Christianity that we had to conform, and if we stepped outside of that, just exactly like the guy said to John at the temple, you know, there is a picture, another picture there. I've seen that go on so many times. We go to church only to be beat up because we disagree with something or we saw something that wasn't right. And John had the right answer to it. It goes somewhere else. And sometimes we need to. But we just need to be sure of what truth is. And once you do that, then functioning and utilizing the truth is really not that difficult. So we're going to look at powers today. There's some really good things for us. Always remember that everything is about your mind. And I know I say it, and yet probably all of us do it a lot more than we realize. You know, we really, in many cases, don't protect our mind. We open our mind to whatever's on television or whatever social media is doing, and I'm sorrowful if you don't believe it, but the truth is that stuff is getting in you every single day. And so we have the responsibility to protect ourselves. And so the first aphorism, certainly as all of them do, speak directly to us. And it's talking about concentration, and with the Vedic name of Dharana, is holding the mind within a center of spiritual consciousness in the body. So let's get this. It's a spiritual consciousness. That's really important. It's in your mind, and now your mind is tied also to your body. Or fixing it on some divine form, either within the body or outside of it. The first 5 limbs of yoga have been discussed in the preceding chapter. 3 remain: concentration, which we're going to look at today, meditation, and absorption, samadhi. The centers of spiritual consciousness here referred to are the 7 lotuses, chapter 2, Aphorisms 49 and 50. In order to concentrate, you must first fix. I promise you, I wish we would be teaching all of this stuff in our public schools. We would not be number 40 out of 40. We would be number 1 out of 40. And so I hope that that also is another mystical thing that is in the process of being changed. The fact that they are attacking the corruption in education is a sign that our frequency is aliving. Nobody cared a year ago. In fact, they hired 40,000 more people before they went out of office simply so that there would be 40,000 more people drawing a paycheck for doing nothing, which is really just mind-boggling. So, but your mind upon the inner light within one of these lotuses as your teacher directs, or you may concentrate upon the form of your chosen ideal, trying to visualize that form either within a lotus or outside your own body altogether. And then number 2 is meditation. Is an unbroken flow of thought towards the object of concentration. And so this really, if you will think about it for a bit, ponder it, you might get a little bit of a different perspective about meditation, because what it is and what it's not, and how you do it and all of those things. I think maybe there's a little bit of lack of understanding on maybe all of our parts, but I love this this statement. Meditation is an unbroken flow of thought. So oftentimes, and I don't know, maybe there are some that ascended masters who could do this, but I love the piece when Yahusha goes up into the mountain, because it tells you he went up into the mountain and he thought about the Father. Meditation in its purest form is an unbroken flow of thought towards the object that you're concentrating on, whatever that object may be. And so that maybe gives you a little more. It's not an object all the time, and I don't know for some that it ever will be. It's not totally stopping your mind so you have no thoughts. Many of you, if you've even tried to meditate, if you have, you found out real quickly it's really hard to make your mind be quiet. Maybe that's because we're trying to do something that's not meditation. And so I love this concept. It's an unbroken flow of thought. So you see then, meditation is not the self-discipline to make your mind shut up and be totally quiet. It's actually focusing the flow of your thought process on something specific. Many people will concentrate on their breath, but every one of them across the board, except for, as I said, maybe some ascended masters can get to the point that everything becomes calm and still and tranquil and it's just blank. I think that is a place, and I think that's a really wonderful place if we could get there. But I think that's also a journey that has taken many men who have arrived at it most of their life to do so. And so, but it is an unbroken flow of thought. So now if you sat down in your chair, or if you went in your bedroom and sat on your bed, or if you were sitting in a car in a parking lot, instead of trying to just totally shut my mind up, I pick something that's worthwhile and I focus my thought on that. Maybe it's a piece in my life that I'm desirous of or I'm seeking, and so I focus my thought on that, and whatever the object that I'm concentrating on, hopefully that'll be a positive thing, because there's many people that meditate on negative things, just so that you know. It's very destructive. It doesn't help you a bit. But the concept is we're virtuous people, and by virtue of being virtuous, we put our thoughts on good things that are above. The New Testament tells us. Paul tells us about meditation, friend. Put your thoughts on things that are above, things that are good, things that are positive. So now he's pointed you to God. He's pointed you to what you're supposed to focus on. He's pointed you to what it is that you should want to be. It's all meditation. And so, in other words, meditation is prolonged concentration, not 100% sitting still and blank, which is what most people think meditation is. The process of meditation is often compared to the pouring of oil from one vessel to another in a steady, unbroken stream. We have seen chapter 1, Aphorism 2, that Patanjali defines thought as a wave in the mind. Ordinarily, a thought wave rises, remains in the mind for a moment, and then subsides to be succeeded by yet again another wave. And in the practice of meditation, a succession of identical waves are raised in the mind, and this is done so quickly that no one wave is allowed to subside before another rises to take its place. So I'm hoping that for everyone, this will be a little bit of a paradigm shift as far as whether you have no meditation life is still a meditation life. It means you haven't concentrated on anything. And then if you are attempting, maybe you're really spending more time struggling with yourself instead of learning to focus your thought process, and then your mind begins to work and do good for you. And so the effect is therefore one of perfect continuity, which is really exactly backwards from what most people think meditation is. It's a constant, no break, and if you, as I have, if you've tried to just lay or sit and be totally still and totally calm and totally quiet, as I said, maybe there are people who achieve that state, but the mass majority of people don't. But we can find continuity in the thought. As the waves come, then they start coming. Think if I'm thinking on God, and all of a sudden I have a thought about God, and then before that one subsides, I have another thought, and I have another thought. If you do that for 10 minutes, can I tell you that very much sounds like great peace have they whose minds are stayed on him. Please, it's everywhere all over the Bible. These people were nothing but mystical people. Christianity would send them all to hell for being demon worshipers or witchcraft or some nonsense. And so the effect is therefore one of perfect continuity. If you shoot 100 feet of film without moving your camera or your object, and then project the result on a screen, your audience might as well be looking at a single still photograph. The many identical images are fused into one. It will be seen from this definition that Patanjali's dhyana does not exactly correspond to our usual understanding of the word meditation. So maybe, I think for those who will take this and will ponder it and contemplate it and then put it into their life, you may very well begin to actually see some results from the time that you are spending. By meditation, we commonly mean a more or less discursive operation of the mind around a central idea. If, for example, we say that we have been meditating on Christ, we are apt to mean that we have not only tried to fix our minds on Christ's ideal form, but have also been thinking about his teachings, his miracles, his disciples, his crucifixion, and so on. All of that is very good, but it is a mere preliminary to what may properly be called dharana and dhyana. When in meditation, the true nature of the object shines forth, not distorted by the mind of the perceiver, that is absorption or samadhi. Ordinary sense perception is distorted and colored by the imagination of the perceiver. We decide in advance what it is we think and we are going to see, and this perception interferes with our vision. Now, many times I want to say how the mind works together. Many times when they take people into, whether you want to call it trance or whether you want to call it deep focus, when people have visions and things that they see, past life regression is one of them, what Dolores does. If those people aren't in that place truly, then they begin to paint pictures that are coming out of their mind. So it really is a picture that you must cut off your mind, and yet your mind becomes more active than ever. And many people struggle with that because they will be sitting quietly wanting something to happen, and nothing happens, so their mind begins to make something happen. That's why you get things that are very clear with many very minute details, and then you get people who encounter it and they have nothing but a bunch of jumble. And the jumble is typically made up of your own mind because you weren't in that place. So I'm just saying to all of us, there is a lot that can be blessed and gleaned for our lives, for our spiritual well-being, for our spiritual prosperity. I would above all things that you prosper and be in good health. How does that happen? That happens from the mind. You will only be prosperous and in good health based on the condition of your mind. Otherwise, if your mind is not prosperous and in good health, then guess what you get? As inside, so outside. Mental people, we know that. It's all over our country at this time. We have lots of people with mental problems. It has become a side effect of many things in our environment and of our society. And if you may not know somebody has a mental problem until they begin to expose what's inside of them, as inside, so outside. That's why we have so many Karens. That's why we have politicians who are worried about a video game. All of those things are just examples of what's going on inside of them. And if we know that and if we use that properly, then we can also use that to heal ourselves. So number 3 is when in meditation, the true nature of the object shines forth, not distorted by the mind of the perceiver, then that is absorption. Ordinary sense perception is distorted and colored by the imagination of the perceiver. Friend, that is a huge statement right there. We decide in advance what it is we think we are going to see. And this perception or preconception interferes with our vision. Great painters have often been violently attacked because they painted scenery as it actually looked, not as people thought it ought to look. It is only in the supersensuous perception of samadhi that we see an object in the truth of its own nature. It's really kind of a strange, and it's starting to become more and more clear to me that many times things that I've watched in behaviors and such, those things really are working out of preconceived ideas. Many of you, if you go to church, you know, if you grew up like I did in a Pentecostal church, you go in there with a preconceived idea. It's not surprising to you if you go in there in a Pentecostal church and somebody starts babbling in something they called an unknown tongue, and somebody dances like a chicken, and somebody stands up in the middle of an aisle and whirls like a dervish and then falls down in a pile and weeps, you know. For me, I walked in and saw that stuff, if not every week, almost every week. I didn't think anything about it. And then I went to church with a friend of mine, and we had conversation about what I saw in church and what I saw at your church, and he's like, man, if I saw that stuff, I'd leave. And there's many people that do. But that's because he went with a preconceived idea of what church was. And it's based on what your subconscious programming was. And many of you are Pentecostals or have been in the past, and you know that what I'm saying is exactly true. It's really not spiritual at all. Most of the time, it's just a preconceived idea that a class of people, a cult, of people with the same ideology, that you should babble in tongues. If you go down to the Pentecostals in Alabama, they think that, you know, you should play with snakes. And I say to them, adios, it's time for our timeline to change, because I like a shotgun when I handle my snakes. But for them, that's spirituality. So we just have to be careful about our preconceptions. All of you have a picture of everything you encounter. The question is it right or not? That's the only question, really. And so it is only in the supersensuous perception of samadhi that we set an object in the truth of its own nature. So there's a difference between having a picture that you think should happen and just allowing what naturally is to occur. You don't manipulate, you don't deviate, you don't manufacture, you don't ride, you don't change, you don't control, you simply just let things be, whatever they are. And guess what? About 50% of the time, it ain't going to be what you want. I'm finding that's one of the greatest revelations in the kingdom of God is that when you begin to try to orchestrate this, it becomes you and not him. That's why you'll hear terms around New Agers of going with the flow. There's very much truth to that. Things are going to happen, and I found out that the harder I tried to make things happen, the less they happen. What happens? You come away with disappointment, and instead of just going, well, that's what was supposed to be. And so samadhi is in fact much more than perception. It is direct knowledge. When Sri Ramakrishna told Vivekananda, I see God more real than I see you. What a revelation. He was speaking the literal truth. For Ramakrishna meant that he saw God in samadhi, while he saw Vivekananda with the eyes of his ordinary sense perception, which must necessarily retain a measure of distortion. So, in other words, can I say yet again, what you see is an illusion. It's nothing but a hologram. And so, when these three, concentration, meditation, and absorption, are brought to bear upon one subject, that is called samyana, yama. Samyama is simply a convenient technical term which describes the threefold process by which the true nature of an object is known, the true nature. Through mastery of samyana comes the light of knowledge. It must be applied stage by stage. Patanjali warns us not to go too fast. It is no use attempting and meditating before we have mastered concentration. It is no use trying to concentrate upon subtle objects until we are able to concentrate upon gross ones. Any attempt to take a shortcut to knowledge of this kind is exceedingly dangerous, and unfortunately there are lots of people who are in exceedingly dangerous straits because of subjects just like this. One may, for example, obtain certain psychic experiences while under the influence of drugs, but such experiences so obtained can bring no lasting spiritual benefits. And I'll tell you, I believe it is true in many cases, people are actually looking for a spiritual revelation, and if they can't get the real thing through discipline and self-control and all of these things we've been seeing, then they will accept something that is, yet again, just another hologram. If you take LSD and you have a vision, you could ask yourself, could I have had that vision without LSD? So you actually sought to control things that were not under your control. Most people live their lives like that. And so one may, for example, obtain certain psychic experiences while under the influence of drugs, but such experience so obtained can bring no lasting spiritual benefit. On the contrary, they are generally followed by a relapse and complete agnosticism and despair. That's very true. The Vishnu Purana, one of the Hindu scriptures, teaches the practice of meditation by stages, beginning with the worship of God, with form and culminating in the realization of the oneness of Atman and Brahman, who is, in a very simple term, God and God in you. Meditate on Vishnu, the dweller in the hearts of all beings, seated on a lotus within the rays of the sun, his body luminous, adorned with diadem, necklace, earrings, bracelets of great luster, and holding conch shell and mace in his hands. Then the wise man should meditate upon the luminous, benign form of the Lord, without the conch shell and mace, but adorned with ornaments. As the mind becomes concentrated on the form, he must then keep his mind on the form without ornaments. So you see, what we're getting here is a practice of how to, one by one, remove the external things. It's not that they don't have value, but they're not important. They do have value in many ways, and at some places and at some times they are very important. But in the state of finding the peace between your inner you, they really are distractions. So then he must meditate upon his oneness with the luminous form of the Lord. Lastly, he must let the form vanish and meditate upon the higher self, which is the whole purpose of us trying to find our higher self. And so these three are more direct aids to experience than the 5 limbs previously described. That is to say, the first 5 limbs of yoga are only a form of training for the aspirant. And I love that. Wherever you are, you can go further. And once you go further, wherever you are, you can go further. And wherever you are, you can then go further. Nobody learns this. It's not a fast process. In fact, it's not fast sometimes at all. Yes, that's dependent on each and every one of us individually. And so the mind and senses have to be purified by the cultivation of ethical virtues, and the whole organism has to be strengthened in order that it may be able to undergo the tremendous experiences that await it. So stop and think about that statement made there. The mind and senses have to be purified by the cultivation of ethical virtues. Can you see how that will be affected by our society and where we're at? We're not, in our society, as a society, we're not focused on ethical virtues. I mean, lying and cheating and stealing and being greedy, those things are all bred into our society. And all of those things will keep you from your true spiritual understanding. And so even if you don't know you do, if you have those things in you because you haven't looked at yourself honestly, then you probably don't even know that that's who you are. And so you don't know who you are, and you want to meet this God that created everything, that lives inside of you. You have a lot of walls between you. So I would love to say this again. The mind and senses, your mind and your senses, not just your mind or not just your senses, your mind and senses together, all that is of you, must be purified by cultivating ethical virtues. Can you see how our society, I remember when I was a kid hearing them talk about a sexual revolution. And what do we have now? We still have a sexual revolution. Now, boys don't know what a boy is, and girls, they can be grown adults with college degrees and they don't know what a boy or a girl is. That's not a cleansing of ethical virtues. We're not aspiring. We're not going higher, friend. As a society, we are going low fast. So what happens when all forget what they are? Can you not see the ludicrousness of I can in my mind I can choose what I am, and because I said that's what I am, that's what I am? Wow. How far we've come. And so the mind and senses have to be purified by the cultivation of ethical virtues. Maybe you have some unethical virtues. Maybe you tend to lie a lot. Maybe you tend to steal a lot. Maybe you just, you can't find it inside of yourself. And the only way to get there is to go through the process of purifying yourself. So the only way. You'll stay and you'll keep doing the same stuff the rest of your life. You'll die and come back and do it all over again. It has to start with a higher consciousness. You recognizing that you have some virtues that may not be ethical at all, and then beginning the journey to fix those. And if you don't make it there, I guarantee you'll be back next time to deal with the same trouble. That's what this is about. That is enlightenment in a nutshell. It is us being honest enough to recognize our failings and then to do the work to fix them. And we do have power. So, by cultivation of ethical virtues, and the whole organism has to be strengthened in order that it may be able to undergo the tremendous experiences that await it. But this is just the beginning. Even the perfection of samyana is just the beginning, for whenever we are inclined to feel proud of some tiny indication of spiritual growth in ourselves, we shall do well to remember Brahmananda's amazing and sobering words. The spiritual life begins after samadhi. So we watch Paul kind of play this out, and so whatever reason it is, this is a strand, and I know where it came from. I mean, I know where it originated this morning in an original conversation. And it was really almost, at some levels, more significant than the question that I was asked. Because Paul speaks very distant. And I don't know that we maybe sometimes truly understand how bad pride is, because we refuse to look at ourselves. And so Paul is over here, asked a question, and he begins to share what he experienced. And he does everything he can do to try to make himself be lower so that he isn't functioning in spiritual pride, whether you know it or not. And I told you there was going to be a thread today. Whether you know it or not, or whether you have any clue about it, is a different story. But what Paul is doing by having that mindset of stating something that most people will never experience is by lowering himself. That is ethical virtue. Pride is bad, friend. You might think you look cool. You might have done it your whole life. You might not even know that you're a very prideful person. But pride brings destruction in every manner that it manifests. And that's very hard to be humble. It's hard for humans to be humble when they're good at something. People start giving you accolades and immediately it goes to your head. Paul says, I've been given everything and I refuse to let it go to my head. So if you don't get anything else, you'll never be the best you until you quit being you. It's kind of hard sometimes for us to grab as humans. But I hope that you will. I hope that you will at least begin the journey. And in closing, if I didn't give you anything else today, I would sum it up in this one statement. It really is. It's a small statement, but it really is a huge statement. The mind and senses have to be purified by the cultivation of ethical virtues. If you don't understand fully the ramifications of that, maybe you should sit down and get your phone out, and maybe you should put it out there. What is an ethical virtue? If you don't know what they are, I'm pretty sure you're never going to accomplish them. But if you do know what they are, then you at least have a chance of recognizing, well, that wasn't really very ethical, nor was it a virtue. And many times we do unethical, unvirtuous things. And we do them often. And because we refuse to look at it, well, of course, we stay in our blind little stupor over here, believing that we're something that we're not. And I don't want to do that. Y'all might be, it's cool that if that's your trip, then that's cool. But I have no interest for that. So I hope that peace that I leave you with today, it does matter the level at which we live. And when you put these things together, yoga is all about the fulfillment of the statement that we read in John this morning about a perfect human. A perfect human will never be prideful. And if they are, they will correct that. A perfect human will always be kind. They will always be loving. They will always be caring. They will always be understanding. They will always be concerned about other people. Those are the things, the virtuous acts that make us perfect. And so let's practice them for all of our benefits. So shalom to each and every one of you. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll share as I always do. Certainly if you have questions or need consultation or anything else, our email is on there. Certainly don't hesitate to write me. Source is doing good work on this earth, and there are many people who are taking a hold of it. We all, like each other, have gone astray, and we all have work to do, and it's those who are willing to do the work that Source will open the doors for. Shalom to each and every one of you. Namaste.